At first in our relationship, it was like, I don't want to disappoint you because I just want us to stay together and I want you to love me. And then when it became abusive, it was, I don't want to disappoint you because I'm actually like afraid of you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have another wonderful guest. Please introduce yourself, tell us your name, tell us what you do for work, and what your views are on mental health.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Natalie Gutierrez. I'm a licensed social worker based in New York. I currently work in a private practice, a group private practice. I graduated 2 years ago with my master's in social work and have been working as like a psychotherapist for the last 2 years. I am in the process of getting my clinical license, so I could do it on my own soon. So that's coming hopefully very shortly. And seeking help for the first time as a teenager really made me realize how important taking care of your mental health is. I've always recognized like how important taking care of your mental health is. I would say from like being a teenager, that is when I really started to realize how much of an impact mental health had on my life and the life of others. Starting to experience like depressive episodes for the first time, feel anxiety. And from there, I developed this passion for it where I wanted to be on that other side, also helping others through their mental health journey. So it really has been an honor to be doing this for the last 2 years. While difficult, it is definitely like a very rewarding job. And I really can't see myself like doing anything else as a career. So very excited to be here today and to kind of talk a little bit more about my journey as a therapist.
What mental health struggles have you gone through that has motivated you to want to become a therapist yourself?
Which ones have I not gone through? That's maybe the better question.
I felt that.
You're right. Like I mentioned, I think when I was a teenager, like around the age of like 15, 16, I started to like hit this place where I was just feeling super like depressed. I was one of those teenagers that put an immense amount of pressure on herself. I was constantly like trying to be perfect in a world where I really couldn't be perfect. Like nothing is perfect. I put so much pressure on myself to get good grades, to get into a good college, to make my parents proud. And coming from a family with, little wild dynamics and like dysfunction and navigating all of that along with just like the pressures of being a teenager at the time, like that just made me kind of crash a little bit into this depression. And it was a scary experience for sure. Like it is exactly what a lot of people say it is, like struggling to get out of bed, struggling to eat some days, not having an appetite, not wanting to be around others and isolating yourself. And so like experiencing that and like trying my best to like come out of that place was really hard, and I needed the help of people around me as well as like having a therapist. And I'm really grateful that at the time like my parents were open-minded and did tell me to seek therapy. They didn't just tell me like get up out of your bed or work harder, do more. They did take me to see therapists, and because of that, like I made a huge turnaround and was able to progress. I also personally started to view therapy as something that would be helpful for me in my own healing journey, and it's something I've continued to do kind of like on and off since then, more so on now since I am a therapist. I've been in therapy for the past few years to take care of myself and prevent burnout. But I would say that experience really opened my eyes dealing with depression, anxiety, and then also dealing with like C-PTSD and being diagnosed with that as well in the last few years. But I would say that experience really opened my eyes dealing with depression, anxiety, and then also dealing with like C-PTSD and being diagnosed with that as well in the last few years. That has kind of like geared me towards wanting to work more with other trauma survivors because I've realized how much of an impactful like diagnosis that is and having trauma is. So I wanted to kind of gear my work more towards trauma survivors as well.
So, can you tell us a little bit about CPTSD and a little bit about your story as much as you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with CPTSD actually last summer, summer of 2023. So this is like a recent diagnosis and kind of like journey for me. The diagnosis came after ending like a long relationship that became like physically, emotionally abusive, and taking that decision to kind of leave but then also like the person continuing to like abuse and stalk me. That kind of left me in a state of just like hyper arousal all the time because quite literally there were times that I was afraid that I was going to run into this person in public, run into this person wherever I was, or that they were always like trying to come like cause harm to me. And for a while that was the case, but then for a while it wasn't anymore and I was in a safer space. But that hyper awareness did not stop. It continued up until after that point where I was just constantly hyper vigilant. I was feeling really on edge. There was times that I was having nightmares about this person, having like these emotional flashbacks where like, let's say for example, I saw just an object, it would remind me or take me back to a moment where I had a fight with this person or like an incident with this person. So at that point I was like, this is not normal. And I felt lots of like shame about it, that I felt so like stuck and scared and like paralyzed. But I knew like I to get through it and like get help, I would have to be honest with my therapist about what it was that I was experiencing. So, I told her all this, and she was like, these are traits of C-PTSD. Have you heard of this diagnosis? She provided me with like a screening and then also provided lots of like psychoeducation around it. And then at that point, I was referred to do like EMDR therapy,
Mm.
which is really helpful for people who have experienced any kind of trauma. You kind of just do eye movements and reprocess like traumatic memories, and with doing the eye movements, it kind of provides us like desensitization where it becomes less distressful over time to think about those traumatic events. And so when I did EMDR, along with doing talk therapy, along with doing like meditation and other somatic based things, I started to feel like unstuck. And I felt like people say like that nervous system regulation, like I felt myself being regulated again. I didn't feel hyper aroused or like always on edge anymore. I felt like this sense of calm and peace. So that has been incredible for me. And after that point, when I felt like I was in a good place in my healing journey, I went back to get trained in EMDR so I could do it myself and provide that service to clients. And it's been really great so far.
I have so many freaking good questions. Okay, so when you got the diagnosis of CPTSD, what was your reaction? How did you feel?
It was kind of sad. It made sense. It was like kind of a missing puzzle piece, but it was also like sad. I was just like, why did this experience have to happen to me? Like, why do I have to now deal with this because someone else caused me trauma? But ultimately, I feel very grateful that I got it because I knew what I was dealing with and it made sense. Like, okay, I feel on edge all the time. I feel like I'm having these flashbacks and nightmares. It helped me understand like what was going on in my body.
How long was this relationship of yours?
This relationship was like almost 3.5 years. So it was a lot of time of my life. I'm someone who's like in my mid 20s. I started it in my very early 20s and I kind of
Mm.
grew and went through a lot of phases with this person from like graduating college to starting grad school. So it was really hard when the relationship started to turn very just like toxic and abusive because I grew up with this person in some ways and didn't think they were going to be this way. And I think that's the case with a lot of people who experience domestic violence. They don't think their partner is like capable of these things, or like they kind of mask it extremely well for a long time. So it was really tough. It was my longest relationship. And I also had to grieve that too throughout all the process of getting that diagnosis. I was also just like grieving the end of the relationship as well.
I really resonate with that because I was also in a 7-year relationship too, where there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of emotional abuse. And I feel like that relationship really took a lot away from me. And it was hard. I was grieving that relationship too because we met during college. So I was in community college and we met because we were majoring in the same thing. And he's seen all my milestones. Like he saw me graduate with my bachelor's degree. He saw me graduate with my master's. He was there when my mom passed away. He was there through the good and the bad and the ugly. Despite how bad our relationship was, there was also good times, but despite how bad our relationship was, like he was there for so many things. And so it was very hard to let that go. So I completely understand that. Now, I wonder, Since starting therapy, like what have you learned about yourself? How have you been able to heal from that relationship?
First of all, thank you as well for like sharing your experience. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. I think too many of us women, we get out of relationships and then we take a look back and realize how many things were actually abusive behaviors and unhealthy. And that is just another layer onto like the healing and the grieving of an end of a relationship. For me in therapy, I think like setting boundaries has been like a huge deal, and learning not to people please, because a lot of things within my relationship, I was definitely like not setting healthy boundaries for myself. And I was engaging in people pleasing behaviors. Like I just wanted to like not disappoint this person. At first in our relationship, it was like, I don't want to disappoint you because I just want us to stay together and I want you to love me. And then it became, when it became abusive, it was, I don't want to disappoint you because I'm actually like afraid of you as a person. That was like a survival mechanism, like people pleasing and not setting any boundaries and just doing whatever like that person wanted me to do. And I was very isolated from my friends during the time as well, because every time I would hang out with friends, it was like an issue or something would come up or a fight would start. So I would say like learning in therapy to set healthy boundaries and like to do things for me and not for others all the time. And then also reclaiming friendship, because it was something that was taken from me for all those years and I was really isolated. I've kind of just like full throttle have thrown myself out there and like made so many new friends. A lot of my best friends right now are also social workers, so they understand like the professional aspect and like we bond over that, but also they're just like young women as well who have also experienced these things and we connected on that level as well. And being able to just like hang out with them, spend time with them has been extremely healing, because I'm no longer like isolated and I don't have to like feel bad about it at all. I'm just like really enjoying my life and my friendships, and also just taking things day by day in terms of like trying to date again. That's something I talk about with my therapist, and like she gives me tips and like how to set boundaries and feel safe and things like that. So yeah, it's been a really helpful journey so far, and I feel like I've learned a lot and there's still more to come and more healing to do, of course.
The people pleasing really stands out to me because I was like that in my relationship too. And it makes me sad that you went from people pleasing because like you wanted him to love you and you loved him, but then it then turned into people pleasing because you were scared of him. That's awful. I can't even imagine like what that was like for you. I felt like I was people pleasing with my partner because like I just wanted to make him happy and I just wanted him to love me in the way that I loved him, right? So then that even led to doing things that I didn't even want to do because that made him happy and that would keep him around. You know what I mean? For example, sex was a big thing for him. And if he didn't get it, he was really angry. And so then I would be like, oh my God, like I have to do this thing to please him, because there were so many times where I just didn't want to. And then that led into my abortion. It was a very awful time. Like I felt like he took a lot of autonomy away from me. I don't know, like just that whole thing of people pleasing, it really stands out to me. And it's crazy what therapy can do for you and how much it can like empower you and bring you back to who the hell you are before that relationship.
Oh, absolutely. I really relate with what you said about like feeling like a loss of autonomy. I always tell like a lot of my clients, like if you're in a relationship and you feel like there's a loss of autonomy or your sense of self, then there has to be some centering there. Like a relationship shouldn't make you feel that way. Two people in a healthy relationship should be able to like coexist with their own independent identities, and it doesn't have to be this thing where you give up to please all the time. Sometimes there is compromises, of course, but when you're constantly like putting another person's needs first or giving up on your own sense of autonomy and not having a life outside of your relationship, that creates those like unhealthy kind of dynamics. With the people pleasing in particular, like I help my clients understand that this is kind of like oftentimes a trauma response, because like I mentioned, the people pleasing, I started to do it out of fear, but also it's something that I've learned from like my parents doing, them people pleasing, because they always have to put other people first. So it's like a generational thing, and it's also like a trauma response. I try to help my clients understand that when they feel like really bad about themselves, because they're like, why am I people pleasing? Like why can't I just not do this? And I'm like, well, you've probably learned it from somewhere and it's probably keeping you safe in some way. So there's nothing to feel like shame about when we're doing these behaviors.
I'm wondering, with all of this, the trauma of the relationship, with the people pleasing, is there also an aspect of hyper independence as well? Because of the fact that you went through all of this with this one person for so long. Now, at some point, you want to also probably prove to yourself that you're able to do things on your own, and that could also be the trauma response as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did a podcast episode for my friend's podcast about like hyper independence, because that is also like a trauma response. And like that relationship ended in 2022. And it was like, it ended 2 months before I was set to walk for my MSW graduation. So I kind of just like shut off and I was like, my eyes on the prize of graduating, and I'm not going to process this until after the fact. But then I continued to push off the processing, where that's when I got to a point where like I felt like my nervous system was so dysregulated. I felt like I was constantly like hyper vigilant. But yeah, in all that time and from then to now, I have not been in a relationship. I have been single for about like 2.5 years. Soon I'll probably hit the 3 year mark the way things are going. But a lot of it is that it's like a hyper independence where it's like, well, I've been able to like fulfill all my own needs and do everything for myself. So do I really need to bring someone else in my space that could like, alter this piece that I've been working so hard to like cultivate and keep? And yeah, you're right. Like, I think also even within my relationship, there was a point where like my needs were not being met at all. I was meeting someone else's needs. So when I got out of it, it was like a huge sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air where I was like, okay, I can meet my needs now. And it kind of like that freedom and that sense of like focusing on myself, it becomes so like in some ways like addictive. Like I love this that I can just focus in on myself and not worry about being in a relationship. But then, there are moments where it's like I would like to have partnership and also like build with someone else because I feel like life is meant to be, celebrated and live with others around us and with a sense of community. It's hard trying to find the balance of like being really independent but not letting it interfere with the things that I do want for myself eventually, which are like more friendships, a relationship, and all those things.
Yeah, and then you have that fear, like when you do potentially find that person, then you have that fear of losing that. It affects you even more, and then you're just like, oh my God, like what do I do from here? How do I get past this? I've had friendships that were just not the best for me, and they were toxic because one particular, I remember I felt like such a people pleaser because this individual had a very, very strong personality, and I didn't want to be the person on the receiving end of how they were, so I constantly attempted to just be Miss Perfection, and finally, when I did one thing that was in their eyes wrong, they completely, like, just shut me out, never talked to me again, got another person to never talk to me again, and that was rough because for 3, 4 years, they were what I consider to be my best friends. It's very important to not lose yourself in these relationships, to continue to remind yourself that you are your own person, that things happen for a reason. And I know it's easier said than done, obviously, because you're constantly in that mindset of, oh my goodness, like I need this person, or my relationship with this person was great. I don't want to do anything to mess it up. At the end of the day, I think reevaluating everything and putting it all cards on the table and just being like, who am I is essential, especially when you start to feel that uneasiness.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I think it speaks to like the fact that friendships can also have those toxic traits and even like some of those things are like manipulative, abusive tendencies to like shun other people and like control other people's relationships and perspectives of you. And so those things also exist in friendships. And one thing that I tell my clients is like, sometimes we have to sit and really reassess our relationships in our life, because if there is a relationship or a friendship that only thrives when you have no boundaries and you're also like constantly giving into what someone else wants over what you want, then how is this friendship really benefiting you? And I think those are often like important questions to ask ourselves, is like, why does this friend or partner really kind of benefit from me having no boundaries? Is it because they want to kind of assert this like control over me? Is it because they have this certain like anxious attachment style? And is it something that I can continue to put up with? Can I continue to be in this friendship or relationship that isn't boundaried, that isn't balanced? Because that's how like that resentment builds, and like feeling of loss of like sense of self, when you're constantly kind of catering to the needs of others and engaging in relationships that don't have healthy boundaries.
Nah, I want to go back to the people pleasing really quickly,
Mhm.
because I was always a people pleaser because of my physical disability. I wanted other people to like me. I wanted other people to see who I am despite my disability. You know what I mean? And then I think that in that relationship that I was in, I thought in my head, I'm never gonna find anybody else. This is my person because he accepts the ins and outs of me. There's nobody else that's gonna accept me for who I am. So I'm gonna do everything I can to make this relationship work, just so, like, so it can work, and like that's it. So you had me thinking about that, right? And it's crazy because through therapy I have been trying so hard not to, or to like build that confidence to where like I don't have to people please. Like if you can't accept me for who I am, it is what it is, and like goodbye. But it is hard to break some of those toxic habits from relationships, right? It's not easy. Dating is scary. I'm on the same boat as you, sister. Like it's very, dating game is very hard out here, because like everybody, I feel, in my experience, I feel like a lot of guys just, they just want one thing and that's it. You know what I mean? Or like they're just terrible at communicating, or like they just want you around just to, I don't know. What has your experience been like?
Well, for me, I think like with dating, it has been very hard. So, for example, like I see like things aren't really moving along in any way. Like in a few months, I'm just like, well, I could do everything for myself. Goodbye. And just kind of like, I'm not going to invest any more time in this. So I feel like I have a limited amount of patience these days for it. And I'm
Wait,
trying to
so
break through that.
so is it hard for you to cut somebody off like that?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty easy because of, I tell myself that. And it's kind of like, this is my toxic trait. I'm working on this in therapy, but like, if after like a couple months I feel like something's not going anywhere, then I'm just going to be like, okay, well, this person's not adding to my life. I already know I can meet my own needs. I'm not going to like wait around any longer. But then it's hard when that's constantly the case, and it's like I find my patience like getting slimmer and slimmer, and that's something that I'm trying to work on. But for me, it's always this fear of like, is this person putting on an act, or like, is the mask gonna fall off, or are they gonna be like, oh, gotcha, and then turn out to be something completely different than what they say they are? So I think the trust part and like building trust with people has probably been like the hardest part.
Ooh, I know you're definitely working on that in therapy too, huh?
Yeah, and my therapist teaches me by providing me with a safe space to talk about everything without judgment. She's teaching me to trust. My friends have taught me how to trust because they always have my back and they allow me to kind of share whatever's on my mind without judgment as well. So I think like having those healthy relationships and other aspects of my life has really helped me with building trust.
I feel like since my relationship ended, my support system has gotten so much stronger. And I am with my girlfriends almost every weekend. And when I'm struggling, I just shoot them a text in our group chat and saying, I'm struggling. This is what's going on. And like they provide that support right away. Or if I physically need them here, they don't even hesitate to come to my house and like just be there for me, even if it's just to be there. Cause I thrive off of just being around people. So even their presence just makes me the happiest. They have shown me what loyalty looks like. They have shown me what trust looks like. My friendships give me hope that there are other good people out there that can show me the same thing romantically, because after my relationship, I'm like, and you know, like I've dated around and whatever, and I'm like, I've lost all hope in men. Like all men are the same, and like it's just so frustrating. But again, like the more I've been able to build such a great support system, the more I realize, okay, there's somebody out there, wherever the hell they are, they're out there. But I try to tell myself like, don't lose hope.
Oh yeah, my girlfriends have really like done so much for me, and I try to tell them and remind them of it every single day. And they set the standard too, like your friends, like don't ever accept less than what your friends provide for you and how they treat you. So like I'll have friends that they're like, "Do you want to go to dinner this day?" I'm like, "Sure." And then next thing I know, they make a reservation to a restaurant. They're just like, "Here's a time and place. We'll meet here." And then I show up dressed cute. They're like, "You look gorgeous." So, like, why should we accept anything less from a romantic partner? And even now, my parents treat me like a princess. I'm very lucky to have my parents. So, like, getting that princess treatment from friends, my parents, it's like, I'm not going to accept anything else in my romantic life.
Period. My dad is the same way. My dad treats me like a whole ass princess. He did it to my mom too. Like he gave her whatever she wanted, she got it, you know, and like whatever I want, I got it too. And I'm so grateful that my dad has shown me like what good love looks like. And again, within my friends too. And I wish I was like you to where you can just cut people off like that, because that is my problem. I have a hard time doing that because I try to see the good in people. I try to bring the good out of them, right? Cuz like it's like, okay, this person has the potential to be good. So I'm like, let me do everything I can to bring that good out of them and keep them around, but that never ends well with me.
Yeah, I think like I was journaling the other day actually from a prompt that I got, and it's like, what's the biggest lesson you've learned this past year? And my biggest lesson I would say is to take things as exactly as they are. So, kind of like speaking to what you're saying, is whether it's like a relationship or a job, take things exactly as they are for face value and for what's in front of you. So, like with dating, I was also doing that, like kind of falling on based on people's potential, not what they were showing me, not what was right in front of me, or like what things could be or what things used to be with someone. So like if the relationship had gotten to a point where it felt like my needs weren't being met anymore, I was still focusing on like, well, at the beginning they were doing really great. So I think like being very present and like focusing on what's in front of me. And I think that lesson has like taught me a lot and saved me from a lot, because I'm no longer chasing like what is this person's potential, what is this person, what could this be. It's just like let me just focus on like what they're presenting right now at this very moment in front of me and take it day by day. And same with jobs too, like take things for what they are as well, not like what is the potential of this job, just like what it is, what it will provide for you in this moment, and if it's something you see beneficial in the present. So I'm trying to be more present focused, not like future oriented and like kind of worrying about what's not there.
Shifting gears a little bit, what are you doing for self-care? You have your own podcast and you're also in private practice, and like, you know, you're just doing life outside of all of that, right? So like what are you doing for self-care for yourself?
Yeah, so for self-care, that's been like an ongoing thing. Some weeks I'm really great, some weeks I'm not good. I feel like a lot of my self-care is like hanging out with my friends. So we love going to like cute dinner places, getting dressed up, and just like having drinks every now and then. Try new experiences too. So like recently I did a pottery class with one of my friends. We've done like candle making classes. So I really like doing like hands-on things and trying new like experiences. For movement, I've been doing like Pilates. I want to do a little more in terms of like exercise, and I'm still trying to figure out what that would look like for me as someone who has PCOS, and trying to figure out and navigate like that whole thing and what would be best for me. So I'm trying to incorporate more movement, but I really have enjoyed doing Pilates. It's like has helped with like flexibility and feeling just like really nice in my body as well. And I really like journaling. I like art, even though I'm not artistic and not talented in that way. I still like to like take a canvas and like paint. And it's fun and it's relaxing. I like to read. I've mainly been reading books related to therapy, which I need to stop. But I do read like romance novels and things like that as well every now and then to kind of like balance it out. Yeah, and I also just really like spending time with my family as well. We're very close, so I always enjoy that quality time too.
Dealing with PCOS is difficult. How are you managing that? How are you doing? Really, how is your mental health while dealing with PCOS?
PCOS is linked and known to like cause depression and anxiety. So that is just a challenge to my mental health in itself. I feel like lately with the PCOS, I've struggled a lot with like chronic fatigue, which has been really hard. Regardless of how much I'm sleeping, I'm tired and I'm waking up feeling tired. And that's been the hardest thing to navigate because there's some times where like I'm working until like 5 or 6 p.m. and it hits 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. and I just feel crashed. Like I have no energy to like finish off my day. And I have to do like listen to music, drink a coffee or something to like energize myself. And I know that the caffeine isn't necessarily good for me or my PCOS, but it's like how I survive because like I have that crash in the middle of the day. And then there's other things that aren't fun too. Like I don't know how familiar you both are with PCOS, but sometimes breaking out with like acne, growing hair as well. Like women with PCOS, we grow like facial hair and hair in different parts of our bodies. So managing that can be very difficult as well in terms of like self-esteem and just not feeling my best some days. But yeah, I mean, I talk to my therapist a lot about it. I have like two best friends with PCOS, and both of my sisters have it too. So we all support each other and talk about how much it sucks. I take supplements for it, which do help. I'm trying to like start meal prepping, and I have been meal prepping and eating healthier meals, trying to do more like movement because those are the things that like help the symptoms and help you feel better as well in terms of your mental health.
I don't have PCOS, but I grow hair everywhere. I literally was just talking about my cousin about this too. It's like, where does this come from? Like it's so awful. But
Yeah, a lot of Latinas, we grow like lots of hair. And I was like, oh, I'm just Latina. I have lots of hair. But then I was like, no, you have PCOS too. I was like, okay.
Something
Great.
that I recently found out, I don't know if either of you do laser for hair. So a friend of mine introduced me to doing laser, and I went. Originally, I just wanted to go for like the chin area, just for like the
I didn't
oh
even know
my
you did that.
the peach fuzz. I stopped for
Okay.
this reason that I'm going into.
Okay.
I was going for like the peach fuzz, all that. I didn't really grow that much hair. It was, I mean, on my arms, yes, but like around my facial area, I was like, oh, like little. I go in and little by little, they started increasing the areas that the laser was going. And at one point, they're like, "Oh, do you want to do your chin?" And I was like, "I mean, I don't really think I have facial hair there, but if you see like a little bit of like peach fuzz, then fine." I found out after doing research like years later that because of the fact that the laser was around my chin area, it actually made the follicles start to grow hair. Those hairs then turned into ingrown hairs. So for the longest time, I was so self-conscious of my chin area because I had acne and I thought, oh my God, it's stress. No, the doctor told me no, it's because of the laser.
I didn't
So
know
I
that was a
stopped
thing.
that completely. I didn't know either. They always said, "Oh, it's impossible for the laser to do that." But I stopped doing laser. I increased my facial routine. Thankfully, now that like my acne is gone, but that all happened during grad school. So I was like, "Okay, is it stress? Like, what's going on?" So it was bad. Now I know I'm never using a laser ever again.
That's wild. I had no idea that was a thing. But Nat, we know you have to go soon, so I'm gonna end this with the last question. Okay. Where's your mental health at today on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst? And if it's not the greatest, like what are you doing to address that?
So from 1 to 10 with 10 being the worst, I would say I'm at like a calm 4. I would say I'm at like a 4. I think just like right now, I'm going through like transitions. So I've been in private practice for like a year and a half, and I just feel like I have kind of, I guess, like stayed at this like level there, and I've reached like what I could get from like that particular setting. So I am going to be starting a new job next month, which I'm excited for. but it's also like a transitional period, and change is always like a little stressful for me. So I'm trying to take that lightly as well. I would say I'm still, of course, healing from past relationships and things like that. For example, I have come a long way, but like I mentioned, I still have some traits that I want to work on, like giving people more grace, being more patient with others, being patient with myself, not constantly having this like negative worldview where I feel like people are always masking something. Some people are, but not everyone. Like there's good people out there, and I'd rather believe that and go to that first, and then like maybe there will be someone who is masking, but let me kind of focus on the positive first. So that's what I'm kind of trying to work on, is like really feeling more safe in my own body, with other people, within the world. And that takes a lot of time. It's taken years and years of therapy for me to feel more like regulated after everything I experienced in that relationship. But I feel like I'm in a good place, just kind of navigating being a working professional, being a young adult, all the stress that comes from that, and then also like PCOS, trying to date, all that stuff. But I would say like I feel like I'm in a really good place.
And I'm so happy for you because again, like I really resonate with your experience too, and unwiring your brain from such toxicity and like trying to build up your self-esteem again and like remind yourself of who you are before that relationship even happened. It's a lot of work, and even then I still feel like I'm working on healing from my relationship despite it almost being 2 years now, which is crazy. So I get it. And it takes a lot of being self aware of these toxic traits that you might still have in your head. And Nat, thank you so, so much for sharing your experience with us because I really, truly hope that whoever listens to this and is in an abusive relationship, like it's okay to be on the other side. Like it's okay to let go of that relationship. And I promise you, if you do the work, you will absolutely come out stronger from it.
Absolutely. I have to second that. Like being on the other side of it is so much better. It is hard and it is going to be hard for a long time after, but it's better. It's also sometimes a matter of your life. Making a decision to leave a relationship like that is often like saving your own life in so many different ways. The other side is better. I'm talking to you from the other side of it, and I fully stand by my decision to leave, and I'm happy that I did it. I'm in a completely different place now. And there are lots of resources and support and hotlines and organizations that could guide you through that process. But yes, absolutely. Everyone deserves healthy, safe love, and not dysfunction, chaos, abuse. We all deserve that. We all deserve the safety.
God, this episode was so like empowering. It makes me so excited to put it out. But Nat, before we go, let us know where we can find you.
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram at Healing Corner with Nat. And then on there, I have links to my podcast called Tea Time Podcast, which is available on Spotify and Apple as well. And also, you can email me if you ever just have a question or want to connect as well. My email is healingcornerwithnat@gmail.com. And if you're interested in being like a podcast guest or have questions and want to connect, you can reach me on there as well.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share this with your friends and family. Don't forget to comment on it. You can also listen to us on Spotify at Therapists Unmasked. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, therapist_unmasked. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you.